Silo is an American dystopian mystery box show created by Graham Yost based on the Wool series of novels by author Hugh Howey. The series premiered on Apple Plus TV on May 5th, 2023. I highly recommend that if you haven't seen Silo, please go and watch it because there will be spoilers for all of Season 1. And while I will touch on the books just a bit, there will be no plot points from the books discussed in this video. In the silo are 10,000 citizens living below ground on 144 levels to protect them from the toxic environment on the outside. The citizens of the silo only know the history going back 140 years ago at the time of the rebellion. Beyond that, we don't know how long they have been living underground. Before I get into the costumes, I must speak to the world building and the production design that is tied into the costumes. With the massive central staircase, the silo itself is incredible. I read the Wool series years ago, and I never imagined that the silo as depicted in the show would be as massive as it is. Upon my initial observation, what immediately caught my attention were the interior spaces, exuding a distinct mid-century modern aesthetic. Although I lack a formal background in architecture, my research on HBO Severance led me to discover furnishings reminiscent of this style. Despite the silo's impressive age of at least 140 years, signs of wear and tear have begun to emerge. Certain apartments display chipped paint and visible deterioration of the concrete structure. The silo, along with its main spiral staircase, columns, bridges, and landings, showcases a concrete design as a tribute to the style of brutalist architecture. Originating from the French term béton brut, which translates to raw concrete, this architectural approach emerged in the 1950s and is experiencing a noteworthy resurgence. In Blade Runner 2049 and Dune Part 1, director Denis Villeneuve skillfully integrated brutalist architecture. Rebecca Ferguson, who coincidentally portrays Juliet in the show, takes on a starring role in the upcoming Dune Part 2. Aside from the structural aspect of the silo, the interiors also feature brutalist interiors and furniture. I think this is appropriate as architectural historian Owen Hopkins writes that, in the United Kingdom, brutalism was featured in the design of utilitarian, low-cost social housing, influenced by socialist principles and soon spread to other regions around the world. It's clear when looking at the production design concepts that the production team took inspiration from the nearly 2,000-year-old Roman Colosseum. Due to the silo's circular shape, numerous spaces within exhibit curves. In a behind-the-scenes video, the production design team, led by Gavin Bouquet, revealed their deliberate choice to embrace roundness throughout the design. The concrete railing of the staircase, as well as the window and door frames, were purposefully crafted with curved elements. Even the interior apartments feature a profusion of curved tiles. The overall effect evokes a reminiscent charm akin to the cabins of an ocean liner. The main color palette of Silo, besides the bare concrete, primarily features teal and orange. According to Petapixel, this color combination is all about creating color contrast, and teal and orange have the highest contrast between their exposure values of any pair of complementary colors on the color wheel. Inside the silo, variations of these colors can be found, with shades ranging from burnt orange, terracotta, and rust brown to deeper blues within the teal spectrum. In the very first episode, the stairs are adorned with Freedom Day banners featuring 3 colors: teal blue, maroon, and yellow ochre. These colors are recurrent throughout the show's production design and costumes, creating a pleasing visual cohesion. The warm palette worn by the silo citizens provides a striking contrast to the black uniforms of the raiders, reminiscent of a secret police force. Additionally, the cleaners and their technical team don crisp white and silver space age uniforms, further enhancing the contrasting elements in the show. I think the motivations of the characters are revealed through their colors. Allison is dressed in warm colors. She is open until she discovers the secret of the silo. Bernard dresses in very neutral tones, not revealing anything. And then Sim's color palette is interesting because while he wears a black jacket, in keeping with some of his thuggish behavior, his turtleneck sweaters are teal or maroon, showing that he is a loving father and husband. Charlotte Morris, the British costume designer for the show, is responsible for creating all of the outfits you see on screen. While there are no interviews available with Morris at the moment, I'll share my analysis based on personal observations. When watching a dystopian story, I often wonder about the origins of the clothing. Although most viewers may not think about it, I believe that the setting and costumes provide subtle hints, even if not directly shown. Let me know in the comments if you noticed any aspects of the costumes while watching Season 1. In the book, the inhabitants of the silo wear overalls and coveralls, like the ones worn by Jules in the Down Deep, dyed in different colors appropriate for their work and social standing. The farmers, for instance, wear green, the Down Deep wear denim blue, while IT wears silver. In Mayor John's point of view chapter, it reads, "They passed the garment district next, the land of multicolored coveralls and the place her balls of yarn come from." Author and producer Hugh Howey explains in a video interview the reason for the change. He said, "I think it would look a little too sci-fi. They're supposed to be wearing all the same color, but it wouldn't have looked as cool as what the wardrobe department pulled off." It's worth noting that the citizens likely have access to material such as wool, as hinted by the first book's title, Wool. Additionally, they may have access to hamper flax for yarn and fabric production, as well as cowhides for leather and suede used in belts and shoes. For instance, the courier pouches seem to be made of leather. I don't think that everything worn in the silo has been made during the last 2 centuries. The type of knitting and leatherwork seen in the costumes suggests the need for special machinery like knitting machines and tanneries, making it more plausible, in my opinion, that the majority of the clothes were placed there and upcycled through the generations. Now I'm speculating, but the silo residents might access clothing through the recycling department or at the market. On the website siloresidences.com, they playfully mention, "Curated hyperlocal goods are just a short walk away. Grab a coffee on your way through the market stalls where you'll find one-of-a-kind relics." It makes me think that the market would also sell handcrafted clothing items from upcycled clothing and new cloth, and also knitted goods. Again, from the books, Mayor Johns is an avid knitter using cotton yarn. It's possible that the founders stockpiled the silo in the before times with every possible need, kind of like Noah's Ark. I have no doubt that the clothing might survive 150 years or longer, as long as it's stored in a climate-controlled setting. There are visible fasteners like plastic buttons and metal zippers on all of the costumes, so it makes sense to me that these items would be from the before times. In the CW's The 100, the characters residing in the underground bunker, Mount Weather, utilize pre-existing clothing with modifications to suit their nearly 100-year-long habitation. Added to this, the age of some of the clothes is obvious, with some costumes showing darning details and patchwork, while others appear to be upcycled from multiple items of clothing. Remnants might be turned into soft furnishings like pillow shams or quilts. In this closed-loop society, there seem to be 3 levels of dressing, like the Titanic's 3 classes. Notable up-tops, like Judge Meadows and Mayor Johns, appear to be wearing newer clothing, while the Down Deep and Mechanical have outfits that are almost military-inspired, like coveralls, cargo pants, and work shirts with epaulettes like those of the Sheriff's Department. The Raiders' tactical uniforms and gear starkly contrast with the warm-toned attire worn by the citizens. Their helmets look similar to the lobster tail pot helms, like this example from the 17th century. Sims in particular stands out with his choice of leather jacket. Another tie to the mid-century modern aesthetic is evident in the nurse and doctor's costumes. The nurse wears a typical 1950s-style nurse uniform, while the doctor's uniform, the one who removes Allison's implant, has an old-fashioned buttoned-up style, reminiscent of dentists or mad scientists. Well, it looks like the costume team custom-made costumes for the show, and I'm pretty sure that that's the case for many of the outfits. I found some vintage and contemporary pieces online that were purchased for the show. So Jules, for instance, wears 2 vintage tops, a heather gray Damsville sweater, and a vintage DSCP Garrison Collection sweater. Interestingly, Jules' character prefers masculine-style dressing. Allison's Fair Isle sweater appears to be a creation from this 1950s vintage pattern, while her pale blue robe is a more contemporary piece from Pour les Femmes. And then I also found vintage pieces for Shirley, Sandy, and Martha. Symbolism runs throughout the show, with Jules discovering a Nautilus relic from the past. The captivating spiral resembling the Fibonacci sequence appears in the opening credits alongside the staircase and DNA, and even adorns George's shoulder as a tattoo. Antibody, who were the Emmy Award-winning team behind the main titles, said in an interview with Stash Media, they said, "We thought about the echoes between the spine through the society and the literal spines of the inhabitants, the DNA of the staircase spiraling upwards and the DNA of the people it connects, the spiral of the stairs and the spiral of the Nautilus, an important symbol in the show." Stash Media adds, "Ultimately, the sequence is about capturing the cycle of life from trees to apples to the legacy of the citizens." In my other videos, I often discuss medieval sigils, but in this case, the silo itself possesses its own unique emblem. It takes the form of an abstract circle, resembling a top-down view of the silo, surrounded by 12 citizens holding hands in a circular formation. This imagery may reflect the belief expressed by Bernard. The needs of the many require the sacrifices of the few. Notably, the ventilation fans at the bottom of the silo feature 12 blades, further reinforcing the sigil. The symbol can be seen on banners, doors, the packed handbook, and even on the podium and wall during Mayor John's address on Freedom Day. The silo sigil extends to the realm of jewelry as well. Mayor Johns and Bernard wear pins or brooches bearing the emblem, while Judge Meadows adorns a pendant with the insignia. A notable sighting of the sigil is on the chain of office worn by Mayor Johns and Bernard during the exile sentencing. Furthermore, it appears on the sleeves of the deputies in the Sheriff's Department, on the lapels of the nurses' and doctors' uniforms, and on the embroidered pouch of the cleaning suits used to hold the wool pads. Due to the show's deliberate dark lighting and color grading, some details were challenging to discern. However, during the funeral scene of Mayor Johns and Deputy Marnes, I noticed teal-green armbands worn by key individuals. At first glance, these armbands seemed to bear the silo sigil, but upon closer inspection, they appeared to depict a tree, possibly a tree of life. The tree of life often represents the source of life and spiritual nourishment. The same patch was also present on the armbands of the cleaning uniform technicians. Despite the silo's totalitarian nature, there seems to be a degree of personal expression allowed amongst the citizens, particularly regarding hairstyles, hair color, and personal style choices. Many individuals have tattoos, especially those from the down deep. Alongside official duty jewelry, citizens adorn themselves with necklaces, rings, earrings, and bracelets. Some of these pieces may hold historical significance as relics, while others could be crafted within the silo. It is worth noting, however, that despite personal adornments, everyone in the silo dresses conservatively, leading me to speculate if there might be a dress code outlined in the pact. This possibility seems likely, especially for individuals in specific roles, such as the Sheriff's Department and Judicial, who are mandated to wear distinct uniforms. The conservatism within the silo is evident in the buttoned-up shirt collars worn by Bernard and Billings. There's also an absence of neckties. Juliet, who feels uneasy in her role as sheriff, also appears uncomfortable in her uniform. At one point, she even forgets to wear her badge and ends up stashing it in her pocket. Subtle clues within this show suggest that the silo is set in Georgia. These hints include Georgia's hidden relic, the presence of the book Amazing Adventures in Georgia, a travel guide for kids, and a shot of a falling peach in the opening credits. During my research on the Sheriff's Department in Georgia, I noticed a remarkable resemblance between their attire and Rick Grimes' iconic outfit from The Walking Dead. The sheriff jackets bear a similarity, possibly made of hemp or cotton, and they appear to be new, indicated that they might have been specifically tailored for the Sheriff's Department. In keeping with the books, one element that remains true to the original source material is the design of the cleaning suits. The books provide a detailed description of these suits, outlining their construction. The outfit consists of a black carbon undersuit with a solid collar for the silver masked helmet. On the outside, there's a bulky one-piece white hazard suit with a shiny outer coat and boots. The suit also features attached puffy gloves and is double-zipped at the back with Velcro for additional fastening. The only minor change from the book is the relocation of the wool pads, now found in a small front pouch instead of being Velcro to the suit's front. In the final episode of the season, Jules is measured for her custom-made cleaning suit. In the book, it's written that the IT housed the labs that made the suits, each one tailored to the person waiting in the holding cell. Before we conclude, I'd like to mention a minor quibble I have regarding the prevalence of Asian-inspired elements in certain costumes, as this has become a frequent trope in contemporary fantasy and sci-fi productions. However, it didn't take away from the story. I just wish they had introduced something a little more original. So there you have it. If you enjoyed this video, please check out my video about the costumes in the Apple TV series Severance. I will leave a link to that in my pinned comment. Thank you for spending time with me. I'll see you in my next video.